It's not something I would do.
Right.
I know. Whenever you ready. I go by Lamont. I'm here representing Rugged Genius in our platform. It's just a positive platform that we're trying to bring people aware about a lot of different things, particularly in the Federal Way area. Sitting with us right now is Jesse Johnson, City Council member for the Federal Way City Council. Can you just tell us about yourself and who you are, and you know where you're from, and just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on, Lamont.
Absolutely.
First things first, I'm a Federal Way kid.
You're right.
Raised here.
Absolutely.
Went to Federal Way High School, graduated, and I really classify myself as an educator first and foremost because I've been involved in education. I taught for a couple of years at Garfield High School in Seattle.
Cool. Nice.
And I realized a couple of years in that the system is made for certain folks and it's not made for certain folks. And
Absolutely.
You either have to be an infiltrator within it or an agitator outside of it.
Absolutely.
And so within education, I decided that I didn't want to go the teaching route because I just saw some things around curriculum and standards and things of that nature that I didn't want to partake in. So I decided to get into family and community engagement within education. So what I do for Highline Public Schools currently is I do family and community engagement around college and career access.
Absolutely.
So I do college fairs, career fairs with students in the Highline School District. But then with City Council, being born and raised in Federal Way, I always wanted to be involved in some way civically in Federal Way. And so about 10 years ago in 2008 when I graduated high school, also the year that President Obama ran for president, I got pretty involved in the 30th District LD, or Democrats. And so I became a delegate, got to go down to Spokane, speak on behalf of President Obama.
So that's where you started, was being a delegate in that,
I got to be the youth delegate, so to speak. So they picked one or two youth to be.
So that's how you kind of like figured out how the process worked and like what you, because most people just look at it like, okay, I'm going to vote.
Right.
But a lot of people don't know about being a delegate and then the process after that and how you rise into like a place like the 30th District Democrats. I didn't know a lot about, like I said, we look at just voting and that's it. But then when you look at, okay, you're going to vote Republican, you're going to vote Democrat, and then they have groups that support each one.
Exactly.
So it's funny that you said that because a lot of people don't know the process of going up the ranks and how you go from a delegate, and you don't necessarily have to go from a delegate to a city council member, but just going through that process, you can see how everything works.
Exactly. And depending on what you want to get involved in, like a delegate, you go and basically in front of a room full of folks and you talk about why we should endorse this candidate at the state party level. There's also like a PCO or precinct committee officer who does the door-to-door stuff in our community in terms of getting the word out about voter registration. And so I think I wanted to be a delegate because I had never been involved in politics. I wanted to just kind of get my feet wet, learn about the process. And as a youth delegate, you had to be at least 16 years old. And I was 18 at the time. It was the summer before I went to UW. And so I got to go down to Spokane and speak on behalf of why the 30th endorsed President Obama over then candidate John McCain, I believe it was. So that was my first time I got involved in politics. While I was at UW, I majored in political science and then minored in African American studies. So,
so you right?
Yeah, I was right in that.
Malcolm X in the making.
Right. And that's funny you say that. Like I've always been interested in both activism and politics. And
it goes hand in hand.
It goes hand in hand. And we wouldn't have had Martin without Malcolm or Malcolm without Martin. And Martin was more political, Malcolm was more activist. But, we needed both. And I think that continues today. We need, folks that are running for policy just as much as we need Black Lives Matter or some of the other activist groups. So I've always enjoyed both. And so while I was at college, I actually kind of got more into the activism realm and went to like marches. Back then it was just like, march against like Wall Street and different things were happening. BLM came after I graduated from college, but that's why I was still at Garfield. And I would see the students just getting so energized around Black Lives Matter. And I was like, man, we need to leverage this power and access. So that's a little bit about me, bit. So Federal Way, when I decided to run, actually over a year ago now, so February of last year,
Right.
I just knew that I wouldn't run anywhere else if it wasn't for Federal Way. But it's because I grew up here. But if I lived in somewhere else, I probably wouldn't run.
Right.
But growing up here and just loving this community, I wanted to get involved.
Did you notice like a lot more young people paying attention, or was it just like the Federal Way, the people that have been here forever just was like, okay, it's time for something new? Or did you see like with Obama, I noticed that a lot of young people started getting together and was like, we're voting for the first time.
Yeah.
So did you see some of the youth coming out like, this is a young guy. I want to vote now, or
Yeah. Actually, I did. The first week I ran, I got involved with Federal Way Youth Action Team. So I went in and spoke for in front of about 30 kids, and 16 to 24 years old. Some of them could vote, and a lot of them did say that they would register for the first time because they were like, wow, when I walked in the room, like somebody that looks like me, closer in age, and so that was really cool to see. I do think that youth will get involved if you give them a reason to get involved, and it's all about the messengers that are credible to them and what's relevant to their lives. And so they always hear folks coming and talking to them, even African American politicians. But if you don't kind of meet them where they're at and get them on your cause, and also hear a little bit about what's on their agenda, because we always talk about the youth are our future, but I think they're our present. Every movement started with student led, and so we can't keep telling them, because what are we really waiting for? Are we waiting for them to graduate from college to get involved, or what is it? What's that mechanism? So I think we need to tell our youth they're our present, not our future.
What are some ideas that you think could possibly rally the youth and get them more engaged? Because I feel like they're waiting for some, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I'm a barber, and when I engage the youth, they look at me like almost like I'm a star, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, how do I get them more involved into let's say they might not be going down the right way, but they might just be stuck, they might not be bad kids, but how do we get them more involved in politics and just about what they can achieve and be in life?
I think the first thing, and something that I've heard you say personally, is telling youth that you actually have power right now. You matter. And so I think empowering them, and I think that starts with whatever their situation is, if they've gotten in trouble, whatever, because all of us have been involved at some point in time when we were young and doing something wrong. We have challenges, and we make mistakes, and that's how you grow. And so I always acknowledge, my own challenges and talk about some things that I have experienced and encountered growing up. And so kind of meeting them where they're at, and then again, kind of galvanizing them around an issue. So for example, like the gun legislation right now, hearing those kids in Parkland talk about the need, like the demand for gun legislation, that was powerful to see, and that's what changed some of the policy over there in Florida. They actually had the NRA director, it was on CNN, and some politicians from Florida come and speak to youth, and they were like, those politicians were sweating in front of those kids. They had to be transparent and open and honest because of the questions the kids were asking.
Absolutely.
And they were basically saying, you guys, put us, kind of jail us up in this school, and it's not even safe. Like, anybody can walk in here and shoot us up. And then afterwards, you're like, thoughts or prayers are with the families. Every time this consistently happened.
The crazy thing about that is, Jesse, is we've been going through that for a long time. Like, real talk, like, our schools, they don't get shot up, but these are some of the things that we talk about with the school district, is just because it doesn't happen on campus doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And we always were aware that most of the time it's not going to happen in school. It'll start in school, but most of the time people aren't trying to get caught. You're basically it's like doing a shootout at a jail. Everybody saw it. So most of the time things happen off campus. So with the gun legislation, is that something that in Washington that they're talking about?
They're talking about it.
Out here?
They're talking about it in Washington, but what they're saying is it's, they're always going back to the Second Amendment. And, the thing about that is, though, when we first enacted that back in the day, like, it was to protect us from government. coming in and taking over. So,
absolutely.
That it's a little different context now. And so now they're giving it to states. And so Florida just extended. So you have to be 21 years old now to get any type of handgun in Florida. Right. And you can't get an assault rifle, which is a good step in the right direction. Washington State, we're still back with other states on that. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much.
So actually, Federal Way High School is having a March for Our Lives on March 24th.
Wow.
And they're marching from Federal Way High School to Town Square Park in support of gun legislation. So I'm going to be there. And that's another thing, marches and rallies. That gets young folks involved. Yeah.
What are your plans for the future as far as, one, what committee are you on with the Federal Way City Council, and what are your plans for the future? Do you want to continuously? I know it's early on in your term, but are you planning on like maybe going to mayor or state rep or something like that? Or are you just right now just looking at where you're at right now?
Yeah, so currently I was appointed to the Human Services, Public Safety, and Parks and Rec Committee as chair. So I'm chair of that committee. Okay. And then I'm also on land use. And so I think both of those together do some important things in the city. So land use, any ordinance or permit to develop something in the city has to go through the land use committee. Right, absolutely. And then the other one, obviously with public safety, that's the police department's a part of that, Human Services Department, Parks and Rec. And so my plans really, it comes back to the platform when I was running. The three most important things to me were youth opportunities, economic development, and making sure that we're addressing the underlying causes of things like homelessness, mental health, public safety, because we always talk about more police, but that's not addressing the underlying causes of at all. And so when you look at our budget, and it's public information, so I can say it on here, but 60% of our budget's to police. That's pretty well in line with a lot of other cities, but some are at 50%, some are 55%. Ours is on the higher end at 60%. But when you have 3% going to human services, I think that's an issue. When you have the community that we have, because folks are getting pushed out of Seattle, and a lot of folks that just don't have the resources and access to resources to get good jobs or send their kids to college. So we need to boost up. 3% is not going to cut it. Maybe back in 1978, but not 2018.
When you look at other countries, I was talking to somebody in my chair, and they were like, man, they don't believe in homelessness over there. Like, the people are like, no, we're going to establish somewhere for our homeless people to stay. So it just got me to thinking, like, how come we don't think outside the box? How come we just, it's 3%, let's make it 4%. Or 3.5, and it's like, well, man, if we could up it to 50, then why not? Like, why put a goal on it? You see what I'm saying? I realize that whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, we all live together. You see what I'm saying? So if I do something that adversely affects you, you're in my community. So I want to see you do just as good as me. Like like that label does not. It's not who you are as a. We're human beings. Right. When I saw you, it was inspiration. It was like immediately the first thing came to my mind is, how do we support you? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Because it's more to it than just getting the position. Yeah. Now we got to support you. So when you do something that you feel is strongly representative to the people, that the people actually stand up and make sure that you're supported in that. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why we were like, okay, let's sit down and let's just. If we could use our platform to get the more information out to the people, then that's what it is. That's what we're trying to do. This is who this person is. If you guys have one of the things that Roger Freeman used to say, one of our representatives, was, I work for you. So when you see me out in the public, approach me. So like I said, again, man, I appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much. Just sitting with us and just giving us your time, you know what I'm saying, more than anything. And
the last thing I'll say, what you were talking about was collective impact. And I think there's power in numbers. We have to be able to continue this dialogue and continue to act together in coalition build, because, it's a system that has taken hundreds of years to build, and so it's not going to come undone within a few, you know what I mean? Or I'm not going to change it all. And so I think that we just need more folks showing up to city council meetings, coming together to meet on the side, because so that we have a common interest or agenda when we do show up.
Absolutely.
And so that they see us, because when they see us, they definitely, I'm one person, and when I walk in the room, the city council, they're all like, you know, they're looking, what's he going to say or do? Absolutely. If a lot of us were there, they would really take notice to that. And so that's important. I know you've came to city council meetings, and so continuing to build that, but that starts with trust and relationship building with our own communities. So I want to make sure that they trust me, that I have their best interests at heart. Absolutely. And I'm speaking on behalf of them. And so I think that'll get them to the table too.
Well, I look forward to it, man. Like I said, those of you out there watching, we need you to come to the city council meetings. We need you to stand up and represent and support this brother. I mean, in all actuality, it's your community. Whether it's Jesse, whether it's another city council member, we're just trying to get the people involved. And we brought him in to just give you a little spiel on how you guys can get involved. So go to those city council meetings, school board meetings. If you see him out and about, you know, I'm pretty sure he, you know, unless, I mean, with his family, you know, respect him, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I'm pretty sure he doesn't mind sitting with you and talking with you and just explaining if you have questions on how the system works or how you can get more involved. So with that, do you have anything else that you would like to say? And we'll wrap it up.
No, I mean, so I'll just remind everyone, the city council meetings are the first and third Tuesdays, 7 p.m. at City Hall. Be there. They run kind of late. So if you got to get up for work, feel free to dip out. But please make sure that you come to some and really see what's going on in our city and our community.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're on the Federal Way channel. So if you miss it and you can't come to the actual meeting, which I encourage coming to the meeting because it definitely makes a difference in person. But if you miss it, Federal Way has a channel. So check out the Federal Way channel for any time that you missed it. Channel 21 if you miss any episodes. So we thank you and get involved. If I could say anything else, peace.